Yes, guys, welcome back to another episode of Teams Like Brighton. And it has to say, what a performance against West Ham. Absolute annihilation against last season's Europa League semi-finalist, Richie. Safe to say, West Ham's bubble has well and truly burst.
Yeah, it's almost like you could say like a passing of the torch, hopefully, just in terms of one European team passing on to the next. But yeah, it was a really it was an interesting game because the start, I don't know about you, Tom, but I actually thought it was a fairly kind of sloppy beginning from both sides. There was quite a lot of like misplaced passes and people not really kind of being in sync with each other. And then, we then absolutely fantastic move out from the back, 20 plus passes. And then lovely cross-field pass from Solly March. His ball proved too much for the pretty hapless right back Johnson for West Ham, who had a torrid afternoon all day. He missed the flight to the ball, and then obviously Bowen brought down Matoma in the box. But so until that point, I thought both teams were a bit kind of off the pace. And then obviously that penalty really helped. And obviously Caicedo took it very well. But I remember I was talking to a workmate, and I think it was around not long after half an hour mark or so. And Brighton's possession was at about 75%. But the shots on target and shots on, it was, I think, 3 each for shots, and then maybe 2 and 2 for shots on target. So you're thinking, well, this game could go either way. Both teams aren't playing particularly well. Brighton are probably the better team, have obviously a lot more of the ball. But then the second half, it was just, it just reminded me of like, I don't know, someone sort of toying with like a runner and then just going, see ya, and then just leaving them trailing in their wake. Just, 3 goals, really good set-piece goal. A set-piece goal from Brighton. I checked actually before this game, Brighton had scored the fewest amount of goals from set pieces at 2 in the Premier League. Now they're at 3, so joint with Man U and Wolves. And West Ham, and West Ham have the best defensive record from set pieces. That was apparently the first corner they conceded all season, and that's in the second goal they conceded from a set piece. But Brighton did a well-worked set-piece move. We can talk about that a little bit later. But, yeah, Veltman chesting at home for 2-0. And then, yeah, Brighton really went through the gears. Lovely, lovely team goal that Matoma did very well to sort of burst ahead, showed good anticipation from Gross's pass across the box. And then icing on the cake from Danny Welbeck. So, yeah, I mean, West Ham were terrible. They really were terrible. It's always interesting sort of having the debate of who was the worst team to come to the AMEX this season. I thought Forest were pretty bad earlier on this season. But I think West Ham, just in terms of a performance, Liverpool in maybe the 3-0 defeat were pretty bad. West Ham were terrible. But Zerbi basically said you can't get close to, you're always trying to chase perfection. You can never get to it. But the second half in particular was fantastic. What about you?
I completely agree, really, with what you said there. We didn't seem to be on the ball in the first half. But West Ham just didn't have anything. They really didn't. There was just nothing on offer from West Ham, and it's really hard to kind of understand how they've got themselves in this position. And I mean, I love Veltman's goal, very Lewis Dunk-esque.
Chest.
And just the overall, I mean, Matoma was just something else. And actually on the side, I got to give a shout out to Hiroyuki, who I spoke to on the train on the way to the game, and he was so excited to go and watch the game. He travelled all the way from Japan. He landed on match day and just went straight to the ground. Like, the jet lag he must have had that game would be ridiculous, and he saw that performance. And that would have been worth its weight in gold, whatever the expense he had. So I hope he enjoyed it. Shout out to him. The time is magic. I love him. I can't stop talking about how great he is. And Pascal Groß as well was superb. Like, we talked in the past, and we've talked off mic as well about the influence Lallana's had on this team and whether or not Gross can really fill in that role. And his performance in the second half gave us a solid answer. And even though he didn't get on the score sheet, and I felt a bit gutted for him, but Evan Ferguson looked like he was just enjoying every minute of that match, and he was game for every battle that was coming up to him. He didn't care if he was Declan Rice, he didn't care if it was Bonner, he didn't care if there was about 3 players around him. He was game every single time, which is frightening mentality that you have if you're 18 years old. Because if you're a professional and you just read the game and you see this teenager and he's not there just because he's delighted to be there, he's there because he wants to make an impact. And at that age,
he's there on merit.
You're going to be you're going to be in for a really tough shift, and they were. It was just such a shame that he just didn't get that goal. But I felt if he had a couple of more chances, I think he would have been on the score sheet. There's so much to talk about. On the side note as well, I think I did feel sorry for Jad Bowen, tripping over himself and trying to get himself back up, and then he gets booked for diving.
Oh, was it? Did he trip over himself? I thought it was a dive. I didn't realize. Right.
He didn't even appeal for a penalty, and I think it was Webster who came over. Because to be fair, he didn't appeal for it, ref. And then Buonanotte dives, but he gets penalised, but he doesn't get booked, which I thought was a bit interesting. But that's just me being very picky as a referee, and that my bet didn't come in. But that's a side note. Because Buonanotte didn't get booked, but I'll let that be because a great performance, and I think as well we talked a lot about several players, but Jason Steele, what's a performance from him? He did not look out of place at all. Like I still got this idea of him just the goalkeeper that just didn't make it at Sunderland. And then he's made this incredible transition for us here, where I thought we just bought him because of, the homegrown quota. But he's really made himself at home here. He's really took on the challenge of being the number 2 and giving Sanchez a bit of a challenge. I was quite shocked that Sanchez got dropped. I can see why he was, but I was really surprised that Zerbi actually went ahead with that. Then, and still just being able to just those cheeky passages of play, of passing and moving the ball about in his penalty area, when Ings was dangerously close a couple of times to get the ball as well, and he just didn't look out of place at all. I thought he was solid in that game when he was called upon, absolutely solid, and that stop as well, that save from Bowen as well. Quality.
Yeah, and also Souček as well. Made a good couple of saves in the space of a minute or so.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, that save against Souček as well. Yeah, it's beggars belief for how this guy. We might actually have to see him in the Leeds game as well. I can't see Sanchez getting into this team now. It's still was superb against Stoke. He's quality against West Ham. There's nothing there that kind of makes me feel like, yeah, we give Sanchez back his place now. I think Sanchez is going to be in for a tough challenge this week.
Yeah, it's a good point. So I actually, without sort of wanting to blow my own trumpet too much, but I will a little. Before the game at the pre-match press conference, I basically asked Zerbi, is Steele in contention for the number 1 spot off the back of Stoke? The sort of mistakes that Sanchez has made. I've seen there's an argument going around that he's maybe not been quite as good since Ben Roberts left for Chelsea. That's an interesting point of view. I obviously don't know, and it'll be interesting to sort of check the stats, how he's done pre and post Ben. But yeah, so Zerbi said, I would like to see competition for places between the 20 players we have, and to think they have a chance of playing in a game. Sanchez is improving in terms of learning my style of play, and Jason Steele is another very important player. I would like to give Jason some possibilities for him to play for sure. So fast forward to the game, and he is starting. I saw I think, I saw Sanchez in the warm-up, and he didn't. I think, he did maybe look a little bit more somber, which is, I guess, is understandable because he's essentially been the number one ever since he kind of. So was it? So it was. He was handing his debut in November 2020 against Spurs, then wasn't played for a few weeks, and then made the spot his own in mid-December 2020. So that's more than 2 years that he's been the number one keeper. And also, just if you go back to that sort of Tottenham game, Steele was basically the number two keeper. And it looked like if Ryan was going to be dropped, Steele would come in, but then he was leapfrogged. So, like you say, he's had to be very, very patient. He's only played like a dozen or so games, maybe a little bit more. But he's been that kind of ultimate team player, side before self every time. And his kind of experience has been helping others. And so I was, personally, I was really, really happy for him to get that call. And then, so just on your point about who's going to be the keeper going forward. So I asked, I asked Zerbi about this after the game, and he said, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Tom. I'm sad for Sanchez because with him, I have one of the best relationships, talk about in the squad, I guess. I spoke with him on Friday, but my job is to be a coach. You have to be honest and clear. And Jason now is playing better than Robert. Robert is playing well, but Jason was fantastic in the build-up in my style. Maybe he is closer than Robert in my style. I think Robert can arrive at the same level. They have different characteristics, but Robert is a good guy, and I think he'll want to improve in this aspect. He also added, I love the competition in my dressing room amongst the players. It's the right competition because that can help you improve. I haven't a fixed plan in my head. I have 2 very good goalkeepers, and I will see in the future who will be in the first 11. And finally, he basically said that at this moment, I think Steele is closer to my idea, my style. When I speak of my style, I'm speaking about the foot. So I guess just maybe like distribution, passing out, that sort of thing. So quick thought, I think that's pretty good. I think that's really well put from Zerbi. Not saying this is the end. Sanchez still has a chance to come back, managing it both well, and basically potentially saying, may the best man win.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've said this before, how much of a motivator Zerbi is. We talked about Veltman's comments after the Palace match about how Zerbi just walked in and the atmosphere was like a funeral, and then he's like lifted everyone's spirits up and like focus on the next match. And that's what he does. And I like the fact that he's honest. I like the fact that he's honest and he has to be accountable not just to his players but to himself. Because I think if he kept on trusting Sanchez, and I think that is detrimental to him and his credentials as a coach. He is ruthless, but he has to be because he wants to get results. And I just love the fact that we've got there's this mentality shift that we've got now. It's not the fact of belief that we can play football well, we can grind out the results. It's a case of, no, we can play well, we can play really well, we can score plenty of goals, and we can win convincingly really well. So, and that little shift is, well, it's shown with the results that we've had under Zerbi, which have been second to none, and it's given me dizzy spells here, Richie. I was watching the Liverpool Man United match, and I was hoping, like probably most Brighton fans, that United will win because it gives us a better chance of Europe.
Yeah.
Like, how on earth have we looked at games like that and think we need the result to go our way here? We never had it. Not even when we've been in the Premier League for the last 6 seasons have we thought, yeah, we need a result here to go our way. We need this result to go help us. Never. Of course, it didn't. Like I can't help but think that could have gone a lot worse. That couldn't get any worse for us on paper. But I'm still lost for words in the case of, like, I've just watched Liverpool thrash United 7-0. And that result is really bad for us.
Yeah,
I never thought I'd actually add that little compound to that sentence, because we're dare I say it? Are we a big club, Richie? Are we a big club?
Teams like Brighton, of course we are.
Yeah, little plucky old Brighton. Who would have thought?
But
It's
just a quick point on that bit a little bit. So obviously the Liverpool result wasn't great, but Joel Veltman said this afterwards. Newcastle lost, Tottenham lost. Brighton have 3 games in hand on Tottenham. They are still, I think, 7 points back. But I think they're only a few, maybe 3 or 4 points behind Newcastle, and they've got maybe at least 1 or 2 games in hand. So, but obviously, and it's really, really competitive. It's almost like there's like 2 leagues going on, or 3 leagues. There's like Arsenal, Man City going for the title race, and then even, Man U up, I don't know, maybe even to Brighton or a bit lower, just sort of Europe brigade. And then there's like maybe Crystal Palace downwards of who's going to be in the relegation scrap. It's a really weird sort of situation, but I mean, yeah, it's pretty exciting. Just final thing I just wanted to ask was, so it does sound like from those comments that Steele will maybe be given a couple of games at least. They might sort of take stock and see how things are going at the end of this month when the international break comes around. So obviously they've got Leeds away, Crystal Palace at home, Grimsby in the FA Cup in the space of 2 weeks or so. It'll be interesting to see if, say, Steele starts in the Premier League games and then they swap all positions and Sanchez starts in the FA Cup. But I do think this will be a real good test of what Sanchez is made of. Can he bounce back? Can he rise to the occasion and go, I want this number 1 spot back. This is my jersey. You're just having it temporarily. Or, will he, struggle in the face of that adversity? It's an interesting one.
It is. We've got ourselves in a really interesting position where, while we're doing so well, like places that are more or less shoo-ins are now they're up for grabs, and I think that's also a start warning to all the other players. Like, you're not going to get walked in. You can't walk into this team.
Good point.
You've got to work hard, and it'll be interesting to see how we will play on. I hope as well. On the side note, Tariq Lamptey, his injury isn't as bad as many fear, because he's finally managed to get himself into that rhythm that we saw a couple of years back under Potter, and now it's fitting so well into Zerbi, and just for him to just get that, I assume it was a muscle injury.
Yeah, Zerbi did say it was a small problem, so hopefully it won't. Maybe just a smart thing. See how he is post international break, but it might even be sooner back. I think it was maybe just a knock or something, but yeah, not worth the risk.
Yeah, exactly. So it will be interesting to see how the teams line up going into this, because we've got a big business end of the season. Like you say, we've got 3 games in hand over Spurs. We get all 3, and that's all of a sudden we're going to be talking about a different European competition altogether.
Tom's drooling at the thought of it.
I need my feet firmly on the ground at the moment, Richie, and I need a bit of humble pie right now. I'm not liking this belief. It's making me feel dizzy. But you look at those 3 games we've got in hand, and I believe it's Crystal Palace, Newcastle United, and Bournemouth. Palace is such a hard. You've got.
It's got to end. It's got to end.
You've got Newcastle, who are. The wheels seem to be slowly coming off at the moment. The fact that we got a draw against them at that point was a fantastic result, but we could beat them. I think they're there for the taking. If they don't revitalise their form again, like they had earlier on in this season, they're there for the taking. And Bournemouth is our banana skin. When you've got those games in hand, that could be our banana skin. Then we just got to make sure we just finish the job off there. But then we've also got the Man United game in hand when that comes through after the FA Cup quarter final. We've got that to look forward to. It it's going to be a really tough test. April is already looking like an awful month for us as it is. And, the added fixture congestion of the FA Cup, now it's a good taster for potentially what we've got next season. And it'll be a message out to the players like we've got to conserve our energy. We've got to make the most of our opportunities because we're going to be just as, if not busier, next season, potentially.
Yeah, and thinking about next season, obviously on Friday, Brighton got the fantastic news that Moyes Caicedo had signed a long-term contract till the summer of 2027, and the club have an option to extend that deal by a further year. So a real U-turn, sort of mad 5 weeks or so from, his his Instagram post when he obviously basically written by his new agent, essentially, trying to engineer an exit from Brighton amid transfer interest from Arsenal. For him to make this turnaround is fantastic for Brighton. Even if he does leave in the summer, that puts them in an unbelievably strong position financially because he will have 4 years left on his contract. He's 21, playing some unbelievable football. The offers, there will be a lot of interest, and if Brighton do, receive offers, Tony Blue, very nice. I thought you were going to write something profound or something very insightful, but just
no, I'm not profound or insightful, Richie.
Nice one. But yeah, so obviously that strengthens their hand a lot. So I asked Zerbi about Caicedo's performance because I personally thought I gave him my highest rating of every one of the Brighton players. I thought he was brilliant in midfield. Declan Rice, who? So basically, he said that this was Caicedo was back. This is the pre sort of transfer window Caicedo, who's brilliant. The one who he thought could be one of the best midfielders in Europe. So he actually admitted after the game, I think Caicedo suffered in the transfer window. That moment was very difficult for him, but you can understand because he's very young, he can suffer in the situation. When you are older, you can handle these problems better. He is a good guy. He's always worked very well in training, and now he is back like he was before the transfer window. For us, that is great news because we need him to achieve our target. So, fantastic performance. And yeah, what are your thoughts?
I mean, it's a fantastic bit of business, first of all, from the club. It's a win-win situation from us. Like we've got a player who has a contract that he feels he deserves and he's very happy with, which is fantastic. And on the other end, we've now got contracts that's going to inflate his transfer value even further. The fact that he hasn't got a release clause in that is a huge bonus. No release clause whatsoever in any way, shape, or form is outstanding. Again, just shows the negotiation power that Bloom and Barber are going to be in when the summer comes. So, everything is pointing in the right direction for us. I mean, Caicedo was superb. He got a fair few fouls in the midfield, and every time he just got himself back up. He didn't roll around or just made it theatrical. He just got the win, got up, got on with it. And every time he just didn't change his style. He got a little bit more aggressive, but it worked because he knew they had to be in order to deal with the likes of Souček, the likes of Rice in that midfield, because otherwise you're just going to get bullied out. And that's kind of the style that West Ham have done past this season. And it has worked at times. And sadly, most of the time it hasn't because, well, look at where West Ham are at the moment. So it was really important that for Caicedo to actually step up to it because he was crucial in a lot of our build-up play into this match. So to have him on a long-term deal was fantastic all round. Local players, 10 out of 10 from the Albion once again.
Do you think this changes anything in regards to the summer, or do you think it purely means that Brighton get a bigger fee for him, but he'll still leave anyway?
I think that the only way to answer that is it depends where we finish. Very, very simple. I think if we get a Europa Conference spot, he'll go. If we get Europa League spot, he might stay. If we get Champions League, a lot of people will be asking if I'm okay. I think I'll be celebrating for best part of the next 3 months. But I think it's very much a case of we're covering our tracks there. We gave them a big transfer fee in January, and he's now got a big money contracts that kind of justify him. You have to buy out his contract, plus we want compensation. So again, it's just us covering ourselves to make sure that we get something, we get the value back that we believe that Caicedo is worth. I would be surprised if he plays in a Brighton shirt next season. Personally, don't get me wrong. I would love the faith if Caicedo and McAllister goes into next season as the midfield duo. I'm going to be happy as a pig in the farm. So if that happens, that's the best bit of business we've probably done in the transfer market in a long time. But I think Caicedo's time at the Albion is sadly coming to an end. 2 more months to enjoy him, hopefully with an FA Cup semi-final appearance at the very least under his CV, and then see what happens next. But I think this is very much a case of us covering ourselves and making sure that we get the compensation we deserve.
Yeah, well put. I'm going to switch to a little bit just to go on to someone who you, Tom, absolutely love the pants off. So obviously you mentioned him a little bit earlier, Pascal Groß, fantastic performance. And I think you'll really love this quote from Zerbi. Just brace yourself, by the way. He is one of the best players I have had in my career. He can play everywhere on the pitch, and he is fantastic in terms of attitude and passion. He is clever and understands different tactical situations. I am lucky to have him in my team.
He said it. He said it. It's just wonderful to know that I've got the same mindset as Roberto De Zerbi, really, when it comes to Groß. I've said this time and time again to all the doubters that we had. That is your humble pie right there. De Zerbi said it. Best player he's worked with, and he's played with some quality players as well, and he's worked with quality players as a coach as well. So let's just all just join in, savor this moment. Pascal Groß is a midfield god, right? He is fantastic, and like you said, he is so intelligent in midfield. He's so intelligent on the ball. He reads things in this game that no one else can, and he helps out direct it. It's very easy to know what's going on, but communicating that with everyone else around you in order for our game to work is a different matter. Pascal Groß he's future management material. I think he's so intelligent in this game, and he sees things that no one else can. And I think he will be a coach in the future, and I think he'll be a really successful manager as well. Pascal Groß is fantastic. There's nothing else to say about this. I'll be echoing into a chamber. He's preaching to the choir as well in De Zerbi, because Der Kaiser is utterly phenomenal. And I'll say that time and time again. He is phenomenal.
Do you think he's got better under De Zerbi than he was in the last sort of salvos of Potter's reign?
I think we've just consistently seen what Pascal Groß has done. This is what I've always said. Every time I think when people say like Pascal Groß had a bad game, he didn't. He didn't have a bad game. I think everyone else around him had a bad game, but Pascal Groß had a good game. And he needs to, I think the way people are working around him and complimenting him in his style of play, it makes him look a lot better. But he's always been that kind of play. He's always been consistently that level of player. It's just a case of we're noticing now because we're getting fantastic results in, and he's playing a formidable part in that every single time. I don't think one passage of play in our goals against West Ham, Pascal Groß wasn't involved in one way or the other. He was brilliant. He's utterly faultless. I can't say this enough. This guy is close to becoming one of the best midfielders in the Brighton shirt, and I'll say that. And I know that there are many people that are probably thinking, like, hang on a sec, take a step back. No, I will die on this hill. Pascal Groß is one of the best ballers we have had.
Yep, and he costs what, 3 million? Absolute bargain. Just one thing I want to add, and I thought these quotes were pretty telling. So this is from Declan Rice, who's obviously there's been a lot of debate recently over whether or not he's a £100 million player. You know, not going to get into that, but the way that he talked about Brighton was really intriguing. So he said, Brighton have a unique way of playing, and we didn't work it out. To be out there was demoralizing. To try and defend, seeing them keep the ball, I got a yellow card, could have had another one. I never want to feel like that on the pitch again. It's just like, wow. I mean, the Zerbi ball is at its best, is fantastic. It's so pleasing on the eye, and it's ruthlessly effective. And you just hope that they can continue it because, you know, what a story it would be if they could get Europe.
What a story! What story it could be, and. You know, I'll be one singing on the hills down West Street, doing I'll be starting a conga line from Brighton Station down to the seafront just to savor in this moment. It'll be fantastic. I can't imagine how mad it will be. I still think it's a dream. I still think it's very much. I still got this feeling that it's so far away for us that we're not there yet. We're not there yet, but it's every week we're that little bit closer, and every week I'm that little bit more excited. I don't know how I'm going to be at the end of the season, Richie, if I'm like this after West Ham. I don't know how I'm going to be. I don't think we'll be able to do an episode. I'll just be laughing away so much.
Nice. Well, yeah, I think that's a good note to end on. Obviously, we'll be back later this week to preview Brighton's trip to Leeds United. And we'll speak to someone from Leeds Live as well, hopefully, previewing that game. Hopefully, you know, Brighton can continue this upward trajectory that they're on. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Keep on listening to teams like Brighton.